This next video will show you how to set up the AutoGuide 3000, going through all the general setup. Now right now we are in an MT775E tractor, so we're going to set up the vehicle profile as a 775E. So I'm going to go ahead, and now you see you're on your home screen. So I've got my home screen open, and all of your setup is going to be done under the wrench. So I'm going to go ahead and press my wrench. Now you're going to have different windows, and you'll also see on the bottom there's a page down. So there's going to be 3 total pages for all the setup. You do not have to go through every one of these. The first one's going to be the way line. Now we don't have to do anything as far as setup on here. We've set this icon as a quick button in previous setup, so we don't have to worry about the way line. We need to set up the implement. So to set up the implement, you can either use your encoder, scroll over the top of implement, or use the corresponding soft key on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my implement. And now at this point you can see my implement name, and then I have my implement offsets. I want to go ahead and I want to make a new implement. So I'm going to use the plus icon. There is also a pencil, and what that'll do is that'll allow you to edit a previous implement that you've already set up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my plus. And I'm going to go ahead and name this. So I'm going to select over my name. I'm going to press in on my encoder. It's going to bring up a keypad. First thing I'm going to do is clear. And then I want to name this a disk. So you'll scroll over your letters, use your encoder to select the name. Once you've named it a disk, you're going to hit your accept check in the top. Now you see your disc. Now you hit your check. You'll pick whether it's rear trailed or rear rigid. So there's different options here. This disc is going to be a rear trailed. It's a drawbar. So I'm going to choose that. Hit my check. You set up your width. So this disc is a 33-foot disc. A 33-foot disc would be a total of 396 inches. Now I'm using WAS accuracy, so I want to have an 18-inch overlap. So I'm going to set it up for 378 inches. You always want to do about an 18 to 24-inch overlap when you're using WAS. So I'll go to 378. Now that means that all my AB lines are going to be 378 inches apart. I'm going to hit my check. You're not going to have any left and right offsets on this implement. It's going to pull straight. The length, so that's going to be the distance from the drawbar pin to your wheels or your lift wheels on your disc. On this disc, they are 16 feet back. So that'll be 192 inches. And I'm going to hit my check. Now you can see that I got my link length and my width. Now you see you also do have an overlap function. The only time you're going to use the overlap function is, say you're using a planter or something that you can't actually change the physical width of due to like an acre counter, and you want to set up your overlap. Maybe you're not getting the correct guess rows. The overlap's going to allow you to decrease the guess row if you got too wide of a guess row. But for tillage implements, just use your total width. That'll allow you to set up your width between your guidelines. At that point you're finished. Go ahead and hit your check. Alright, so I've got my implement finished. I want to go back into my wrench. The system status is just going to give you statuses on whether you're ready to auto steer or not. The correction setup, if you are using OmniStar, this is going to be where this is set up. For this purpose, we're just going to be using WAS. We're just doing general tillage. We're going to keep that as WAS. I'm going to use my down arrow. This will allow me to go to my next set of screens. The next portion here is going to be your steering response. If I click in on steering response, this is going to allow me to change the way the tractor acquires the line and then also its steering response rate. Most of the time we're going to leave this at 50%, 50 to 60%. Default is going to be 50. It works pretty good on all implements. But if you see that you're maybe swaying too much, you got to increase your steering response rate, or maybe you're chattering too much, you got to decrease that steering response rate. I'm going to go ahead and hit my escape here to get out of there. My manual nudge offset, we're not going to use that for our shifts and any GPS drift. We're going to use the GPS drift compensation. So don't worry about the manual nudge offset. We're going to use GPS drift compensation. We're going to select in on that. Now, this is where you set up how much you actually want the shift to be. So if you're using WAS guidance, it works best to go about 12 to 18 inches. That'll allow you, anytime you press your left and right shifts, it's going to shift the line 12 to 18 inches. For the offset south, offset west, and offset total, that's just incremental numbers that tell me how much I've actually shifted on the previous line that I have. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up my incremental change. So anytime you hit those left or right icons, it'll shift that 12 inches right now. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 18. I'm going to go to 12, select in on my encoder, and scroll up to 18. And then you can hit escape when you're finished, or hit your check. Okay, the next is basic and advanced. We're not going to use the basic mode. That's going to be the go mode. We're going to use the advanced. That'll allow us to have all these different settings. So I'm going to scroll down. The next is the vehicle profile, and this is very important. In the vehicle profile, I'm going to select in on this. You can see right now I have MT775E. You need to make sure that you name that exactly the tractor that you have this in. So if it's a 600, you got to make sure you name it. Say it was a 655D, you'd have to name it MT665D. So right now I want to go in and change some settings on the 775, so I'm going to use the pencil. Now in here it's very important that you set up these distances, and all these are measured. It gives you presets, but it's nice to get a tape measure out and actually physically measure these. It's very important for steering to work correctly. Once you have these measured and entered, you can see that each one gives you a description of where it's located, where to measure from. Once you've got these entered, go ahead and press your check. Alright, and then you're done with the vehicle. You can press the wrench to get back in, scroll down a page, and then you're going to be one more page. You can see that vehicle profile which we were in. Now the calibrations. There's going to be 2 calibrations to get the auto steering system to work. You're going to have a compass calibration. What that's going to have you do is drive in 1.5 circles. It's going to find its headings. And then your mounting bias calibration will be a step-by-step process. It's going to have you drive from an A point to a B point, and then auto steer between the A and B points. And then you're going to be finished with your calibrations. And those are all going to walk you through directly on the screen of how you need to do it and what order to perform those in. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape to get out of here. Alright, and then the last one is the system, and that's just going to be for diagnostic purposes. So at this point, you're done with your setup. You can go ahead and hit escape, and now you can see I'm back at my home screen. That is the general setup for the AutoGuide 3000 on the C1000.